Hey guys, so today I thought it'd be fun to talk about cars and how to get started. What car should you buy to get started in RC off-road racing? I've been through this journey now 3 times, and for various reasons, it didn't end up working this last time. I've completely fallen in love with it. I finally got exactly what I've always wanted. Um, so I do have a bit to speak on as far as getting going and buying your first car, getting the wrong car, finally getting the right car. So the first car that I would want to talk about, and the most common car in all of off-road RC racing, is going to be a 10 scale buggy. So we're watching a race here from a year ago. This is a JConcepts video that I'm sharing. So this is actually the way that I kind of planned on getting started. I talked to some people at the track, and like I say, this is the most common class. The cars, this is a 10 scale buggy. So the cars are amazing. The cars are insanely fast. They're reasonably light. They handle incredibly well. They turn on a dime. They jump incredibly well. It's shocking what you can do with these things in the air. You can actually change the whole attitude of the car with steering and with the throttle. I'm pretty competitive, and as much as I'd like to be able to say that, I could jump into a class like that. That's it's the most common, but it's also the most competitive. And so as much as it's fun to be able to say, oh, well, I'm going to run and buy a 10 scale buggy and get out and try to be competitive right off the bat, it's hard to be competitive right off the bat. And my bigger mistake for me was I actually started with the wrong version. So in 10 scale, you're going to have 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and then you're going to have various motor classes. So the slowest class will be a 21.5 motor class, and then there'll be 17.5, which is really where most tracks are going to be. I started with a mod 2-wheel drive buggy. This is the hardest buggy to drive, and by far the fastest and most competitive class. These things absolutely fly down a straightaway. It's hard to deal with. And I actually started out on carpet, which was even worse because everything happens instantly, and I couldn't even comprehend it, to be perfectly honest. But this is the best race car. If you want to get going, get yourself a 10 scale buggy. If you want to be serious about racing, this is the best race car. You get all the cool setup stuff. All your shocks can be infinitely adjusted, your shock positions, all your cambers, all your toe angles. Okay, toe angle will be in the front. These things are pretty amazing. So this is the best race car by far. So the second car that I want to talk about is stadium trucks. So stadium trucks are essentially the sort of a big brother to the buggy. They're actually based on a buggy chassis. So here's, if I can get this into my hands here. So this is actually my stadium truck. This is actually a vintage class stadium truck. And so just to kind of show you a comparison in size, here, this would be a good way to show. So the wheelbase is a little bit bigger, but mostly they've got a humongous tire. The car itself, as far as the overall size of it, it's actually about the same. These, because of that extra width, they're hard to roll. And they roll with that giant, so you can see how big that tire is in comparison as far as circumference. They roll over everything really, really easy. So that big tire makes the track smoother. So they're really great on the track. I actually really love watching this class. This is probably the stadium trucks are probably my favorite class to watch as far as like the way the car works on the track. I think they're reasonably good to control in the air, but they also have that extra bit of play in them. So they're fun to watch. And I love the way they sound on the track, which won't make any sense until you actually hear one in person, but they're very quiet. These things, as far like the tires are quiet. These are cool. So this is another cool way to get started. So the final off-road vehicle that I want to get into is short course trucks. So I actually think this is kind of the unsung hero for the amateur driver, for the beginner, first time. My truck is actually based on a Traxxas Slash. This is a 4-wheel drive truck, but you can get a Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive new. Some tracks are actually running the Traxxas Slash ready to run class. The trucks are like $230. And then you got a transponder is about they're 120 to 140, depending on which one you get, depending on what your track allows. And then your batteries. So you can be racing a truck for pretty inexpensive. It's a great way to get started. They're bodied vehicles. So the nice thing about a bodied vehicle versus a buggy type vehicle is your wheels are completely exposed. They're going to crash into everything. So there's a lot higher risk of breaking things. There's no, this has no bumpers or anything to protect itself. This has got a full big old bumper in the front. It's got big side guards. So your likelihood of just bashing straight into wheels is a lot less. But you also have, when you're coming into contact with other vehicles, because you have that body, you have a lot more chances of just being body to body and not just flipping. The buggies and the stadium trucks tend to bounce off the track, flip over when you touch each other. Whereas these, you can touch each other a little bit more. So I love the heads up racing with these. These are probably the best heads up racing for an off-road vehicle. So yeah, this is actually, I think this is probably the best way to get started. If you want to buy an RC car, bang around, have a good time, laugh. This is the class that people are laughing when they're racing. It's the class that drivers come off, they come off the podium without broken parts. They come off the driver's stand without broken parts. They come off the driver's stand laughing and having a good time. Yeah, this is probably personally my favorite starter class. I have one more class to talk about. So that last class that I'd like to talk about, not really class, but just type of off-road racing I'd like to talk about is oval racing. Right now there's the Chili Bowl going on. It's a huge event where right now there's 4,500 competitors all running oval. It's really fun. The nice thing about oval racing, especially as a new driver like myself, is the learning curve to actually get going is a little bit easier. You're not hitting jumps, so the car's not going to get pulled around as much if you're making mistakes. You've got a lot more area to play with, and you're only turning left. So from a driver standpoint, it's actually a way easier way to get started. This class that I'm showing right now, this video is from Oval RC, so credit to those guys for this. This is street stock class. So these are, your stock car. They have all the different types of cars, modifieds, all your midgets and sprint cars. It's really amazing, and different levels of technicality as far as what you can get into. I love the detail that comes into oval racing. So as I've gotten going on my car initially, trying to figure out how to set up a new car and make it work was challenging. And now I'm chasing tenths of a second and more. Like I'm looking at a guy right now, he's like a tenth of a second faster. I've been beating him because my car's easier to drive, but I'm like, I need that tenth. And it's awesome to be able to do that. So this is how I got started finally actually RC racing. So this was what actually finally worked for me. This is a slash modified. Our track has a slash modified ready to run class. So these are a ready to run car. You buy this with the radio, you add a transponder and a battery, and you're racing. So it's fairly inexpensive. This platform is anything that's slash based. They're generally pretty tough. The slash and this are very tough. I've seen one break as far as out on the track with this slash modified ready to run class. The cars are a little easier to set up because there's just not as much setup available to them. They don't have as many shock positions. You can still get heavy into cambers and ride heights and all of that kind of stuff, but it's a little mellower class. So this is a really cool thing. I think these things are making huge waves all across the country because it's a good race car and inexpensive and bash worthy, so you can hit the wall and hit each other. I bent in one race, I bent one of my hinge pins, which is a pin that goes on your A-arm. It actually attaches your A-arm to the body. And then I've seen one actually broken A-arm. Since I started racing, I've been racing now for 10 weeks. And so now I'm starting to become pretty knowledgeable in the whole thing. Anyway, I want to see everybody, you know, get into RC racing. It's fun. It's fairly inexpensive. It's something to get outside and do something that's enjoyable. So yeah, if you've got any inkling to get into RC racing, go out to your track, talk to people, get a car and start racing, because it is super fun. We'll see you in the next video.